state government. Now, these are state governments, remember, that were just voted in November. This was the midterm elections. People said we wanted smaller government. We wanted government to spend less. Now, 3 months later, people are complaining about the way the governments are operating. They're looking at budgets and they're... you kind of shook your head there. No, they're not. There are taxpayers, there are Tea Party people out there who are endorsing what's going on. But we're seeing working people. We're talking about school teachers, the police, and the fire departments out there who are raising their voices saying, wait a minute, we didn't think you were talking about us when you were talking about making those cuts. Will we see something like that? We already saw some demonstrations in downtown Pittsburgh. Will we see something like that in Pennsylvania with this budget coming up?
Well, one comment I'd like to make about something Representative White talked about, and why he has a valid point, and we have to look at the Delaware loophole. You know, to say that businesses aren't paying their fair share in Pennsylvania, we have the second highest corporate net income tax in the world here in Pennsylvania. Under the leadership the last two budget cycles, the capital stock and franchise tax was raised retroactively by $3 billion. It was not true. The phase out was stopped and then extended. $3 billion of tax increases in the budget that went 110 days.
Why is that not true?
Because we were in the process of phasing it out. We were phasing out the capital stock and franchise tax, and in order to avoid raising the sales tax or avoid raising the income tax, what we did was we froze the phase out. They turned around and called it a tax increase. Wait a minute, and one other thing, Jim, to address what you said, that you talked about this high tax rate. That's the whole point. These corporations, like the Walmarts of the world, they're not paying that tax rate in Pennsylvania. That's the only, so you can't say the tax rate's so high, but the corporations aren't paying it because they're operating out of Delaware.
Well, let's be honest. All the corporations in Pennsylvania aren't benefiting from the Delaware loophole. And let's also be honest. When you say instead of raising tax A and B, so we stopped the freeze, or we froze the phase out, and in the third quarter of that year that he's talking about, in the third quarter, in October, they retroactively raised the capital stock and franchise tax. Companies had made 3 quarterly payments, and in October, they said, you've got to go back and you've got to pay a 10% increase, and we're not going to give you any extra time to do so. It was a third quarter raise, but it was retroactive back to the beginning. And so if he says we didn't raise A and B, so we raised C to balance the budget, this year, there will, I believe, be no tax increases. There will be a budget that is passed on time that doesn't raise taxes. I don't know what else the public has to say to be more clear that they don't want tax increases. And in businesses, I don't know when we talk about businesses and business taxes, bankrupt companies don't hire people. So we should want Pennsylvania to be competitive. We should want business here to hire people when we have a 10%.
But you can't give away the store to the point where you have nothing coming in.
We're
in this hope that there'll be X number of jobs and X number of taxes and other stuff coming in. They have to pay their fair share. And it seems like over and over, the philosophy in Pennsylvania is bend over backwards and do whatever to let companies come in and manipulate us and exploit us, and you get nothing in return.
Well, I don't know if we bend over backwards in Pennsylvania in the sense that we have one of the highest tax rates in the world.
Keystone zones, all these other programs.
And there's 2 schools of thought, and one I think we will all agree around here. Under the last 8 years of the Rendell administration, there's been $1 billion of corporate welfare every time in the budget. I absolutely think that has to go. For us to support a system for the last 8 years that allows Governor Rendell or legislative leaders to parade around the state giving big cardboard checks of taxpayer money, that's the wrong way to create economic development. We rank in Pennsylvania, we spend the second most of economic development, corporate welfare, but we rank 48th in job creation. It's not working. The cardboard checks have to stop. In the last budget,
and I'll let you get to that. But if you don't do that, you're talking about incentives to bring companies in. If you don't do that with economic development dollars, are those companies even going to look at your county?
Well, first of all, let's look at who's paying for those cardboard checks. It's the mom and pops. It's the companies that are paying the 9.9% tax rates. It's the 10% personal income tax that was passed under Republican leadership, but Governor Rendell pushing for it back in 2002, I believe. That has to stop. 2003, excuse me. That led to those cardboard checks.
But if that kind of thing wasn't done in your district, the Center Township Plaza area, if that kind of thing wasn't done, if there weren't issues being made to build that site, to put red lights there, to open up the roadways for it. Would it have come to Center Township, or would it have gone someplace else?
It's a matter of picking winners and losers. Let's fix the business climate and allow everybody to have lower taxes.
Did it help your district?
Sure, it may have helped a handful at the expense of other companies going out of business because they can't afford the high tax rates. It is picking winners and losers, and yes, there will be some winners, but I think that has not worked. In the statistics show, we rank second in the country in economic development spending, but we rank 48th in job creation. It's not working. Let's stop picking winners and losers, letting legislators and governors be big shots with cardboard checks.
Go ahead, Joseph. This is entertaining as all get out, because this is a perfect example of legislating one way in Harrisburg and legislating another way back at home. And Jim, I mean, I'm going to just bring this right to your attention. The bill you're talking about is the RCAP bill. It's the capital. You're talking about the $1 billion in economic development funding is RCAP projects, the capital development projects, which you voted against whenever it was brought up on the floor of the House. Yet I have an article here from last month from the Beaver County Times where you're hopeful and optimistic about $4 million in RCAP funding going into your district. So why is it okay to put $4 million into your area in Beaver County for the Jim Christiana dock project, which would be basically the next version of the Arlen Specter Library, but it's not okay to do these projects anywhere else?
No,
that's just hypocrisy.
I'm happy to answer that question. I voted against more debt and more borrowing at kids' and grandkids' expense. But after that pot of money gets awarded, it can either go to Arlen Specter Libraries, or I can help it go to infrastructure projects that are going to help create jobs. Baseball fields that Representative Mike Vion, back when he was in office, got $1 million to build a baseball project with taxpayer money. That's not creating jobs. And if this goes to an industry that once housed 3,000 people working in the Aliquippa steel mill section of Beaver County and can actually build infrastructure to house people, that's how that money should be spent. I disagree with it being spent, but it's going to go somewhere. I'd rather it go to infrastructure projects rather than baseball fields and Arlen Specter Libraries.
So you're saying that the community people who are paying the taxes, who have dilapidated play sites for their children, the children and grandchildren that you're talking about down the line, that they can't be rewarded some of that money to improve their surroundings, to improve their lot in life when they can't afford to do it on their own? How many jobs is this dock going to create?
It potentially could create, in that area where J&L Steel used to be, upwards of 200 to 300 jobs once that site is ready. But I don't think what Representative White is saying is that in order to get the money, you have to vote for it. So essentially, only if you vote for it, I think projects should be awarded on merit. I don't think they should be awarded only to those who voted for it. And that's exactly what Representative White is saying. If I vote for it, I should get the money, and if he didn't vote for it, he should get. That's exactly what you're saying.
No, it's not, because I don't have $4 million in RCAP money going into my district. I can tell you that for an absolute fact. And what this is about is, this article right here says that these projects, the money had not yet been awarded, and you're saying in the Beaver County Times that you're hopeful that it would be awarded.
They actually have been awarded.
Well, and if you were serious about not wanting to use state money to develop these projects, which are terrible everywhere else except in your backyard, there's nothing to be said that you can't write a letter to Governor Corbett and say, no, you know what? We're going to turn it down. I'm going to practice what I preach. I don't want this debt. I don't want this spending. I'm sorry, that's hypocritical.
And it should only go to those who voted for RCAP? Is that what you're saying?
I voted for RCAP, and I didn't have $4 million, but that's not the point. This isn't about that. This is about having principles and then following through with them. If you voted against it because you fundamentally didn't believe in it, you can't turn around and say, oh, well, it's laying there anyway, so I guess I'll take it.
No, it's not a matter of taking it. It's a matter of awarding projects based on merit. Not because some legislative leader has a baseball field in his backyard that he wants to be funded, and they deserve rewarded for that. I think that sends a bad message.
And didn't vote for it, but since it's going through, you decide that you should get a part of it. It's like when they were talking about John Kerry being against something before he was for something.
No, Mike, it's not about that. It's about going after projects that will hopefully create jobs if we're going to spend the pot of money. I wish we wouldn't have spent it. I voted against it. That money is going to be spent somewhere. Is it going to go to baseball fields and Arlen Specter Libraries, or is it going to help an area which isn't even in my district, but I believe in it because it used to house 3,000 jobs, and now it's a rundown old mill site. Somebody needs to invest in that. And I don't get to write the checks. I just am in support of that project getting funding if funding's going to be spent.
We'll continue our conversation, but that's what that baseball field you're talking about was, a dilapidated steel mill that they wanted to turn into a project for the community. We'll continue our conversation next on Night Talks. Get to the